Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. That is a hard act to follow. I thought Tom was bad enough, but the kids were absolutely brilliant. Look, a couple of things I'd like to do. I'd like to also reiterate Tom's words and recognise the servicemen and women who've served this country over the last millennium, particularly those who are currently serving in war zones throughout Australia, throughout the world at the moment. Only 10 weeks ago, I was in France paying tribute to a young Aboriginal man who died 99 years ago at the age of 21 at the Battle of the Signs. That young fellow was from Cape Barren Island, happened to be the great uncle of my wife, and we were the first family ever to visit that grave. So we've got our warriors in places all over the world. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Larrakia people, and their elders, both past and present. Today I'm going to go through a number of items, and just to go through and give you a bit of an idea of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to have a quick chat about myself. I'm going to go through four pieces of research and try and draw some conclusions from those research. In 20 minutes I'm really going to flick over it, so I'm going to apologise to John Gunther, who's sitting in the room right at the very moment as one of those researchers who spent many years in the field. I will just glance over them because I do want to raise a number of points and I want to come to a conclusion in those 20 minutes for you. A little bit about me. I'm a Māori man, as was pointed out. I grew up on a cattle station called Nyondi Cattle Station. That was our traditional land, so we're very lucky to be brought up on traditional country. I schooled in Perth and went back to country all my holidays until I turned 14, joined the Air Training Corps as a cadet, and that was my excuse not to go back because I wanted to go to RAF Base Pearce. I'm, as I said, a Māori man. That's my grandmother up in the top left-hand corner. She's portrayed in Rubber-Proof Fence by Deborah Mailman. There's a lady on the station that gives the kids the jackets and was being abused by the station owner. Old Granny actually owned the station. She was the first Aboriginal woman to own the station and ran that station. She ran away herself, did the Rubber-Proof Fence about 15 years prior to the girls who were my aunties and her nieces. That's why they knew how to walk the fence. That's my mum on the right hand side. We've had 3 generations of stolen generations. So mum went through Sister Kate's in Perth, Western Australia, and so I'm one of the Sister Kate's Mafia. I've got 2 kids, my son who served in the army, and that's my wife in the middle, Sonia, who's a Palawa woman from Tasmania, and my daughter who's currently studying at WAPA. All she wants to do is be an actress, and most girls, she started acting up when she was about 4 years old. I came to this job from RAF Base Pearce, where I commanded the base for 3 years. I'm still serving Wing Commander in the Air Force, and those brothers and sisters who are out there who are currently serving, I do thank you for your service. Prior to that, of course, I've been 33 years in education. 13 years as the Director of Aboriginal Education and Training in Western Australia, and I'm a primary school teacher by profession. I was a school principal and a superintendent throughout Western Australia, so it's a real privilege to be here in Darwin, and a real privilege to lead a Bachelor Institute, because every countryman, blackfella in WA has heard of Bachelor. And when I got the appointment, many people came out to me and said, we've studied at Bachelor College, because we all call it Bachelor College over there, not Bachelor Institute. We've studied there, it's a great place to go to, and it absolutely is. As I said, I want to talk about 4 pieces of research, and I'm going to talk about the preconditions for success. This conference is all about engagement and the power of choice. Our people actually don't get the choice 9 times out of 10. A, we're too poor to go to a non-government school, or we live in a remote community. So we don't get the choice. So there's not a lot of power there, but we do have some choices that are there. So consequently, I want to look at what should a school have in place? What should a school have in place to be successful, or what should an institution that's an educational institution need to have in place to be successful? I'm going to have a look at 4 pieces of research, and I chose these bits of research because all the schools involved and the institutions involved had First Nations schools in there and First Nations people attending those schools. The first one I'm going to look at is the Turnaround Schools by Ken Leithwood. This is some research that happened in Canada, and I'll talk in some detail about that in a moment. Punching Above Their Weight, which is research on 12 schools in Victoria that were doing far better than any other school. Punching above their weight is a boxing term, which means doing much better. You might have seen it on TV some time ago when you saw the guys, I think it was Carlton Bury, were advertising it was the guys with the beautiful looking wives punching above their weight. It's not that. Red Dirt Thinking by John Gunther and Sam Osborne. As I said, I'd like to acknowledge John and the audience here. And also Strong Smarter. And this is the piece of research actually done by an Aboriginal person. And I tend to use the word Aboriginal, and that does acknowledge our Torres Strait Islander cousins. So let's have a look at the first one, Turnaround Schools. Leithwood looked at this particular piece of work in Canada. It's an amazing piece of research. It looked at a number of schools that were failing and then became highly successful, and looked at what was in place in those schools prior to those schools becoming successful. What Leithwood found was, of course, strong leadership that raised expectations. He also found that there was a positive school culture. There were good rules, the place looked good, and people felt good about going to it. That's a really interesting one because there's some great research called Broken Glass. If you look at a place that looks run down with a broken window out the front, there's no likelihood you'll go into that store and use it because you think if the outside looks pretty ordinary, or the product they're selling is going to be pretty ordinary. And you look at some of our schools and some of our educational institutions in remote places, and I certainly wouldn't be sending my kids in there just by looking at them from the outside. Engagement of parents and local community. I don't really know whether many people understand what the word engagement is. And I think that's a debate in itself. Some years ago I was involved in writing Directions in Aboriginal Education in 2008, which was the penultimate at the time national document in Aboriginal education. And we made a decision to not call it attendance, but we called it engagement. And the reality was not one jurisdiction really understood what the word engagement meant, because we thought it was more than just kids going to school. Effective teaching, with teachers learning from each other, and development and measurement of student learning. So to put that in a summary, a little box, it was about leadership, it was about school and culture, it was about community, effective teaching, and effective student learning. Punching Above Their Weight by Zabar. These were a set of 12 schools in low socioeconomic areas in Victoria, and these schools were doing as well as any other school. So they looked at it and said, well, what was in place? And they looked at the preconditions again. What was in place prior to the school improving? And again they found, believe it or not, strong, stable, in other words, the principal wasn't insane, strong, stable leadership that focused on what mattered. High attendance, and all these schools had Aboriginal students in, some didn't. But half the schools did that they looked at. High attendance was a prerequisite. It wasn't something they tried to achieve once it was in. And might I say, it was high attendance, those young people were attending regularly. There's a difference between high attendance and attending regularly. Attending regularly is young people going to school 90% of the time or more, not 50% or 60% or 70%. I'm sorry, 80% ain't good enough either. So when we look at things such as NAPLAN, and we say we're going to see a difference if we raise attendance, and the attendance is raised from 50% to 70% in the school, yes, we can give the principal and the teachers a big hug, but it ain't going to make that any difference at all. I was going to say no difference. It's not going to make any difference at all to outcomes. You have to have regular attendance by every single student. So you need to focus on 90% of the time or more. Positive view and high expectations of the students by the teachers, and positive view of the students by the teachers, So the students actually like the teachers and a really positive view of the teachers. So I guess in many ways that's a positive school culture. Again, orderly learning environment. So if we looked at Leithwood and Zabar combined, again strong leadership comes up, both of them mention it. School culture of high expectations. Engagement of community, no, we didn't talk about it. Effective teaching, effective teaching, effective student learning measures, orderly environment and a high attendance. Sarah was stronger, smarter. His school in Cherbourg found that school leadership that focused upon high expectations and relationships. Again, school leadership. First time ever, an Aboriginal person doing a study, we have cultural identity mentioned. That those young people understood culture and felt strong about their own culture. Sarah brings it up. A culture of high expectations. Again, a supportive, positive community leadership, and we've got again strong leadership, school culture, engagement in community, all by Leithwood, Zabar and Sarah. Combined, but Sarah brings up for the first time this concept of cultural identity, which hasn't been mentioned up to date. Then we bring in red dirt thinking. Again, they presumed that strong leadership would do the following. Have high expectations of the students and the teachers. Recognise the place of cultural and identity. So again, culture and identity comes up as clear processes. A definition of what schooling really is and what mattered about schooling, because what schooling means for non-Aboriginal people can mean a very different thing for us. What we want out of it may not be a job. It might be something quite different. A positive and real community engagement. So we combined Leithwood, Zabar, Sarah and Gunther, and all of them talked about school leadership. All of them talked about a culture of high expectations. Some of them talked about effective teaching, some of them talked about effective student learning, some of them talked about an orderly environment, some of them talked about high attendance, but two of them talked about cultural identity and defining the reason for schooling Gunther brought in. Are you really surprised by that? Not really. So me standing out the front, you're probably saying, well, Bob, we've heard about that before. Nothing really that fantastic, because most of the research says that. Except that, of course, the cultural identity and defining the reasons of schooling is something pretty new. So what is it that is going to make the difference when it comes to learning environments, schools and learning institutions? Well, I think it's going to make the difference with all areas of Aboriginal affairs. Fundamentally, it's about this. It's about Aboriginal governance with real power. And it's informed Aboriginal governance, and very little research gets into that. What does that mean? It means that we have a CEO or a principal who's Aboriginal. It means that the school executive is run by Aboriginal people. We don't go out and talk with the community and put together a community commitment. The community is going to commit to the school, but we have an executive that is running the school that's Aboriginal. And we have a school council that is full of Aboriginal people that have got real power, not consultative power. That's the bottom line, and we don't see that throughout our organisations. How many Aboriginal principals are running schools in the Northern Territory? I bet you I can count them on my hand. How many school councils in the Northern Territory are run by Aboriginal people with real power? I can count them on my hand. How many school executives have got Aboriginal people at the majority? I can count them on my hand. So if we're going to see real change, that's the only change we have to be able to see. And you might say, well, Bob, it's simplistic, but it is informed. It is informed and with real power and informed Aboriginal people. I'll give you an example at Batchelor Institute where I lead. When 2 years ago, well, let's say 3 years ago in 2014, 61% of the council was Aboriginal. This is the governing council. In 2016, 75% of that governing council was now Aboriginal. The corporate executive, there was no Aboriginal people in corporate executive in an Aboriginal organisation. Many of our Aboriginal organisations throughout the Northern Territory reflect that today, where they're all run by non-Aboriginal people. I don't know how Aboriginal people have a say in the change process when it's not being run by our people. 2016, half of corporate executive at Bachelor is now Aboriginal. The senior executive, no Aboriginal people. This is about 19 people, no Aboriginal people were in senior executive, and now over a third of our senior executive at Bachelor. What's the outcome of that? The organisation has turned around and other Aboriginal organisations are now coming back to Bachelor because Aboriginal people see the Institute as being Aboriginal. Schools can reflect the same. Some of the outcomes of that have been pretty clear for the organisations. Those results include NT Trainer of the Year, NT Collaboration of the Year, NT Trainer of the Year, NT Students of the Year, the Australian Large Training Organisation Finalists of the Year, Vet Trainer Finalists of the Year, I can keep on going. It changes organisations because we, as Aboriginal people, are able to run our own organisations and make the difference. So the preconditions of success is certainly Aboriginal governance with real power, strong Aboriginal leadership, a culture of high expectations, and recognising at the centre that Aboriginal Islander culture, language and understandings are fundamental to success. People often say that Bachelor is a second chance institution, and I go, no, it's not. It's actually a first chance institution because it's the first time that culture and language are central to the teaching of the organisation. It's really not rocket science, it's common sense. I was at a function last night run by the conference, and looking in the room I said, this room has got 80% of Aboriginal people in here and 20% of non-Aboriginal people. How many of these people in the room are in a situation of having real power and be able to change organisations? The reality is that we can no longer simply be the token. We have to be in a position to make real change, and when that happens, we'll see real change in the education system. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much. I hope I've been able to